We're about to pull back the curtain on one of the most powerful and maybe one of the most misunderstood forces in your digital life. It's this system that's always working in the background, subtly shaping your decisions, influencing what you buy, and even what you trust. You've definitely felt it, that weird feeling of being followed online. But today, we're going to dig into the psychology that makes it all work. We're dissecting the engine of digital persuasion, retargeting.
Okay, so look at your screen right now. Chances are, if you've recently browsed a website, you are being followed by an ad for it. So here's the big question, the paradox we're going to solve today. Why does this repetition, which feels, annoying, work every single time? We've all been there, right? That creepy feeling of being stalked across the internet by a pair of shoes you looked at once. It can feel relentless. But here's the thing. This isn't some random accident. It's a massive industry, built on a system that's been engineered based on a really deep and honestly kind of counterintuitive understanding of how our brands work.
So, to get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the massive problem that even made these ads necessary, what I'm calling the 98% visitor crisis. Then, we'll pop the hood on the retargeting engine to see how it all works mechanically. After that, we get to the really juicy stuff, your brain on repetition, where we'll uncover the psychological keys that make this whole thing go. Then we'll see how the pros use the master's framework. And finally, we'll give our verdict on why this is really more of a whisper than a shout. All right, before we can really get into how retargeting works, we first have to understand the enormous problem it was built to solve. You see, old school advertising was like using a fire hose to water a single flower. You'd spend a fortune hoping a tiny fraction of the right people saw your ad at the right time. It was just incredibly wasteful. So retargeting isn't some small adjustment. It's the answer to this giant industry-wide crisis. Here it is. This is the number that keeps digital marketers up at night. 98%. That's the average number of people who visit a website for the very first time and then just leave. Without buying anything, without signing up for anything. I mean, just think about that. Imagine you own a real store. 100 people walk in, look around, and 98 of them walk right back out. They're just gone. All the money you spent to get them there, vanished. This isn't a small leak, it's a flood.
And this chart just puts it in stark visual terms, doesn't it? For every 100 visitors a business pays to get to their site, only 2 actually become customers. The other 98 are just lost traffic. That level of inefficiency is just not sustainable. It's what created this desperate search for a better way. How could they re-engage that huge group of people who had already shown they were interested, but just weren't ready to pull the trigger at that exact moment? They needed a boomerang. And that boomerang became retargeting.
Okay, so we get the why now, this urgent need to do something about that lost 98%. So let's move on to the how. We're going to open up the engine and look at the actual mechanics. It's really important to get this. It's not just one random ad following you around. It's a logical, automated, and actually pretty smart 3-step process that decides who sees what, when they see it, and, crucially, when they stop seeing it. The whole process really boils down to these 3 steps: segment, sequence, and suppress. So first, segment. This is the trigger. The moment you do something that signals you're really interested, like adding an item to your cart or spending a few minutes on the pricing page, boom, you get tagged with a little piece of code, a digital cookie. Now you're in a specific audience. Next up is the sequence, and this is key. It's not a random blitz of ads. It's a controlled, carefully timed series of ads designed to build your recall without driving you crazy. And finally, and this is what separates the pros from the spammers, is suppress. The second you buy the thing or sign up, the system is designed to take you off that ad list immediately. This is so important. It stops the company from wasting money, and it stops them from annoying a brand new customer. Now, what's really fascinating is how precise that sequence part is. Marketers have crunched tons of data and found this sweet spot, an ideal window for turning that gentle reminder into an actual purchase. And that window is usually somewhere between 4 and 10 times seeing an ad. From your brain's point of view, it makes sense. The first ad or 2 is just jogging your memory, like, oh yeah, that site. But it's in those next few views, maybe impressions 3 to 7, where the real magic happens. Your brain starts shifting from just being aware of the brand to feeling familiar with it. A little bit of subconscious trust starts to build. Any less than that, and you might get forgotten. Any more, and you risk tipping over into real annoyance. The whole system is tuned to hit that exact window. So, we've seen the crisis that sparked retargeting and the engine that runs it. But now, we're at the absolute core of this whole thing. This is the why behind the why.
We're moving past the tech and into the deep psychological principles that make it all work. This is the master key. It's not about the ad itself. It's about what the repetition of that ad does to the wiring in your brain.
The first and probably the most powerful idea here is something called the mere exposure effect. This is a classic in social psychology. Think about a song you hear on the radio. The first time, you probably don't even notice it. The fifth time, you're kind of humming along. By the 20th time, you're like, hey, I love this song. The song never changed, but your brain's relationship to it did. Decades of research show that we just develop a preference for things simply because they feel familiar. Each time you scroll past that ad, even if you don't click it, your brain is filing it away. It's bypassing your skeptical conscious mind and building this powerful foundation of familiarity. And this quote just nails it. It's the perfect summary of this counterintuitive idea. We always say familiarity breeds contempt, but in psychology and marketing, it's the exact opposite. Familiarity breeds preference. And if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, it makes total sense. Our ancestors survived by trusting what they knew and being suspicious of what was new. A familiar berry was safe, a new one might be poison. Our brains are still running on that ancient software. Familiar equals safe. So when you're ready to buy something, that brand you've seen 10 times just feels safer and more reliable than some brand you've never heard of. All right, the second psychological tool here works right alongside mere exposure. It's called cognitive fluency. Imagine trying to read a really messy, complicated font versus a clean, simple one. The simple one is easy, right? It has high cognitive fluency. Your brain just gets it, no effort. The messy one is hard work. Well, here's the kicker. Our brains mistake that feeling of ease for trustworthiness and truth. When you see that ad for the 5th time, your brain processes it instantly, and that easy feeling gets transferred to the brand itself. It feels good, trustworthy, and intuitive. Let's just put it side by side. When you see a totally new brand, your brain's alarm bells kind of go off. It takes a lot of mental energy to analyze it. Is it legit? Can I trust them? It feels risky. It requires you to actively think. But a familiar, retargeted brand, that's a different story. Thanks to all that repetition, it has cognitive fluency. It's easy to process, so your brain labels it as safe. The decision to click or buy feels more intuitive, less like a research project. That repetition has literally changed your perception from risky stranger to familiar option without you even realizing it. So now we get these two invisible forces, mere exposure and cognitive fluency. Now let's see how the pros don't just hope they work, they actually engineer a whole system to make them work better. This is where we go from theory to practice, from understanding the psychology to building a machine that runs on it. See, a really well-done retargeting campaign isn't just the same ad over and over. It's more like a story told in 3 parts. The first few ads are in the recall phase. They're super simple. Hey, you looked at this. Their only job is to get back on your radar and start building that familiarity. Then the campaign gets smarter and shifts into the value phase. These ads might show you customer reviews, a 5-star rating, or maybe a small discount. They're answering that little voice in your head asking, but why is this a good choice? And finally, for anyone still on the fence, it's the risk mitigation phase. These ads are all about making you feel safe. Free returns, money-back guarantee. They're designed to take away that last little bit of fear. It's a sequence that guides you from interest to trust to a final confident yes. Now, being a master of this system isn't just about what you do. It's about what you don't do. There are 2 incredibly important controls that separate the pros from the amateurs. The first is the frequency ceiling, or frequency cap. This might be the most powerful tool in the whole box. It's a hard limit on how many times any one person can see your ads, say 10 times over 2 weeks. This is what keeps you from crossing that line from a helpful reminder into a true annoyance. The second, and maybe the most critical for the business, is that suppression list we talked about. This is the automatic off switch. And this quote from our research just frames it perfectly. This isn't just a nice idea. It's the absolute key to making money and keeping customers happy. And ruthlessly is the important word. It has to be instant and automatic. Every single penny spent showing an ad to someone who already bought the product is completely wasted money. But it's worse than that. It's a bad experience. Nothing is more annoying than being chased by ads for something you just bought. So, ruthlessly suppressing converters is the smartest financial move and the most respectful thing you can do for your customers. Okay, let's pull all these threads together now for the final verdict. We've looked at the crisis, the engine, the psychology, and the playbook. So what's the big takeaway here? What's the ultimate truth that makes this annoying system so incredibly effective? Well, it all comes down to understanding that great retargeting is a whisper, not a shout. First, let's just look at the raw numbers. When it's done right, a smart retargeting system usually gets a conversion rate that's 3 times higher than advertising to what's called cold traffic. People who've never heard of you. That 3x lift isn't magic. It's the direct result of all the psychology we've been talking about. You're not trying to persuade a total stranger, you're just continuing a conversation you already started.
And here it is. This is the entire explainer boiled down to one simple sentence. A person's first visit to your site, that's just a signal of interest. That's it. But interest is fragile. In a world of a million distractions, it's gone in a second. This system, retargeting, acts as a bridge. It's that controlled repetition that builds the bridge from flimsy interest to solid subconscious trust. The repetition isn't the sales pitch. It's the quiet work happening in the background that makes the final decision feel safe. So the next time you see one of those ads following you around the internet, you'll see it for what it really is. It's not just some pushy sales tactic. It's a whisper. It's a system built on the knowledge that the path to a decision isn't one big jump, but a bunch of small, familiar steps. Because the best marketing doesn't try to create a new desire out of thin air, it just patiently and very effectively reminds you of what you already wanted in the first place. And now you know exactly why that works.